Hi, welcome to the HostAfrican, where we discuss web hosting, how it relates to business, the individual, and its general role in society. I'm Ashwin, your host. In today's episode, we have Chanel Harrison, who runs her own web design business. Chanel, how do you do? Would you mind giving us a brief background of your business journey, where you started, how you got to where you are now?
Okay, I'll try and keep it brief. It's been quite a journey. All started off with COVID when everything got turned into scrambled eggs. Is where I started web design basically. I've always been a graphic designer. Went to art school, and was born into signage. And then yeah, just kind of ran my career through on signage. And then when COVID started, I was introduced to the beautiful world of web design and hosting, and I think I got hooked. And then from then onwards, it's just been a continuous journey of learning, trying to keep up with technology and producing the best possible product for my clients.
Just to maybe elaborate a bit on web design, is that coding, like programming, or do you focus more on like let's say, what the user sees like visually?
Okay, so I think my ethos is a lot to do with the combination of aesthetic and functionality. So I like to use WordPress. I am not a coder. I'm definitely more of an artist. So when I see lines of code, I start going a little bit funny. So I like to analyze what the client wants and create a beautiful yet functional website so that everything looks good but works well, whether it's an sorry, an online store, if it's a membership package. And I just feel that WordPress already kind of bundles. It takes all of that hard work of coding out to a certain point. There's a lot of things it cannot do, but yeah, I think to summarize, definitely a lot of aesthetic combined with functionality.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I mean, like, I think your website's a good example of that, because when I was checking out your website, I was like, oh, this it's like the way everything comes forward and moves back. I mean, the color palette's very, it's gentle, but it's kind of intriguing. I think it's a very good, um if someone was window shopping for like a website that they kind of wanted to create, or they wanted to start and they didn't know like where to start, they didn't know what they were looking for. Like, I feel like your website gives a it gives a good sense of what you're capable of doing. So I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So I mean, you've been involved with art and design in various forms over most of your life. Have you seen technology influence these? Like, are people veering away from the craft because they think it's not commercially viable, or?
Oh, that is a tricky one. I think it varies from artist to artist. At a stage, I was operating as a commercial artist, and for those who don't know, my superpowers are sculpting and painting. So when the lights go off, then I turn into a real artist. And you can make anything work if you have enough will and enough dedication. You can make it work. In terms of technology versus art, I think a lot of people are concerned about the new AI movement. I'm not particularly worried about it. I've studied my history of art. I know art comes and goes in various motions and ebbs and flows, and this is just another way for art to evolve. I think it's really great if people can take their art and run with it and make a living out of it, because at the end of the day, it is absolute soul food. I've been in the fortunate position where I've been able to kind of turn my art and mix it in with a technological career and put something out there that I still enjoy doing. So but that's just being able to adapt, I think, at the end of the day. So yeah, I think art and technology, I think going forward is definitely, they're going to be holding hands for a long time. And I don't think it's anything that anybody needs to be afraid of, but rather to embrace and use and to grow and develop with it.
I tend to agree. I do think they're going to be holding hands for a long time, and unless we get lost back to the Stone Age by in some way. But yeah, parting that, like, you're probably going to be together for a while. Again, it's just a tool, and like, if you find a way to accommodate this tool's uses, I feel like your skill, your craft, or your career doesn't have to disappear. You know, it's not. I don't see it as AI kind of taking over everyone's career. I just feel like it's a tool that makes our life easier. It's like maybe similar to, let's say, farming. You know, like instead of us plowing the fields, now we have like tractors to kind of take care of that for us. So it's yeah. I mean, as long as we maybe accommodate and understand what the uses of it, what the uses of AI is, we will feel like we'll find like a natural, let's say, balance, you know. But I think we still pretty much in the early stages where people are like the balance isn't there yet. So people's like they wandering around a bit. People's a bit nervous. People's like worrying about their jobs and so on. So yeah.
I think a lot of, especially artists, if you have a look at social media and read a lot of the forums and the chatter that's going around, a lot of them feel intimidated because there's now seemingly a lot of machines that can do what they can do. People tend to forget that, like I mentioned, art is soul food, and unfortunately, a machine cannot add that essence of soul. So it can assist you throughout the referencing process. It can assist you to, to think of an idea you wouldn't have come up with before, and then you add a piece of your soul, and then it turns into genuine art. So that is why I say I'm not intimidated by it, because I know there's at this point, we don't know, 200 years from now, there's at this point no soul in a machine. So I do not think that art is ever going to really, compete with what a human can come up with.
I mean, I hope you're right on that one. I mean, like if we were looking at two digitally like constructed pieces of art, I don't think I'd necessarily be able to tell the two apart, but I'm sure you would, since you're an expert. Although, I mean, there, there's some things that I feel like make AI art a bit distinctive, but someone who could create a or write a really good prompt, I feel like they would probably fool me, probably. But yeah, I don't want to get focused on on that too much. In most businesses now, it's like it's kind of about speed and efficiency, like output basically. So how how quickly can you get a design out? How many websites can you like sort out for this client or customer, whatever the case is? And like with using products such as maybe Canva, like making it easier for companies to create their own art. Like, you can produce a certain level of quality, but and you would know what is quality versus what isn't. But with like these new tools and kind of technologies, do you feel like it's kind of taking away from you, in the sense that people who aren't as skilled as you would kind of, they would use these tools and not know where the missing parts are, because they don't have your experience, they don't have your expertise, basically.
Um, Agreed. Agreed. Again, I think it's a process of evolution and adapting to evolution. There is a lot of uncertainty in my field, design and web design, as to where things are going and where am I going to be? Am I still going to be relevant in the next 5 years? So, it does sit at the back of your thought. A person does worry, um, and you do think about these things. However, a lot of people ask for original thought processes. People will come to you and say, "Listen, I got my Adobe Firefly or my ChatGPT to quickly spin up these ideas. Can you take them and create something? Because I just can't get it over that edge. You can't prompt it 100% to how they want it. Well, yet again, we don't know where we're going. So there is still that human relevance, and I do feel, as a born graphic designer, I do have that edge where, as you mentioned earlier, my website looks great. It's like going for a window shopping for websites, the graphics that come in and out. So I've got a two-part that I can throw in the mix there. Testing some of the AI web builders. Um, I think that it's stuck just popping information into a template. So I think it still has a bit of work to do. It has a bit of time getting there, and hopefully by the time it has evolved to a point where it's going to replace me, I would have evolved to a point where I'm ahead of it in some way or another. So. Uh, and when you say like programs like Canva, making it easy for clients, making software more user friendly, I do think it is important for small businesses to be able to have a bit more control over what they want, their flyers, their social media, and that type of thing. Um, Purely for the sakes that, the cost of living and for a small business to survive is an incredibly difficult feat. So if you've got to pay these huge design fees to an institution to just generate a little bit of content to get out on social media, it's kind of giving the power back to a small business. So I do agree with these software applications like Canva, so on and so forth. There are limitations within specific industries. If we look at print design, for instance, if guys come to me with a Canva design and they want to make a billboard out of it, then I sit and I have to explain to them, listen, this is not print software. We're going to have to redesign it. You're going to have to pay me to get it up to size, up to scale, looking pretty. And then, through that process of explaining to them, then they do understand. But as somebody that doesn't know anything about design, jumping on Canva, you want to start doing vehicle wraps, you want to make stickers for your windows, you want to do signage, and then once you've put all that effort in, you realize, but none of this can actually work. None of this actually looks good on a printer. So I think the specific industries do struggle a little bit, especially when guys are hell bent and say, listen, I spend so much time designing this on Canva, why can't you print it? Then they kind of get a bit sticky with you. But for all intents and purposes, for social media content creation, for little stickers, for branding on your apparel and that, give the power back to the small oaks. I mean, they need it. It's not always really important to blow your budget when you can do these things yourself.
Are you at all worried about AI creeping into your industry or like your business specifically? I mean, you said maybe 5 years you don't know where it's going, but like is it a concern that you put at the back of your head? It's like I don't worry about it when I need to, or is it something you're like I need to plan for this now so that if anything happens in 5 years, like I am fully prepared?
I want to give you an absolutely honest answer. That is probably as I'm holding AI's hand and trying to keep up with as quickly as it's developing, which is very difficult. It is something that I have put in the back of my mind, and not out of the sense of trying to be cocky or over confident about myself and my abilities, but I do know that AI is creeping up on us, and it is a little bit worrisome. It does sit in the back of my mind, but I haven't really given it too much thought um, as yet to say, listen, I am seriously stressed about this. I've got a contingency plan in place. This is what I'm going to do. And so, yeah, just to answer your question, I'm a little bit worried. It is in the back of my mind, and I am aware of it. And I am just probably hoping that I can evolve and adapt with it and manage to keep myself relevant through the process.
How did the early years of painting with your mom influence you to take up design? Like, I mean, you said you were a natural born designer. Did it seem like a natural choice because you were exposed to that environment, or was it even before you really started paying attention to what your mom was doing that you kind of felt like this is what you want to do?
Yeah, I think I was born with it. With a family of crazy artists, it's kind of hard to run away from it all, So when my mom was raising us kids, it was still before the dawn of large format digital printers, and it was right on the cusp. And she would go out to site with her paintbrushes and her paints, and we would, after school, I would have to tag along and do my homework there. And I was always sitting there, and she was forever painting. And then going home, she would then change from her signwriter brushes to her oil paints, and then she would start continue painting over the weekends and that. And so it's kind of it's part of my DNA, I think, that whole upbringing of art and creativity. I always said that I enjoy design, and I really enjoy the industry because it's not a very serious industry. It's not, I'm not doing heart surgery. I don't have the responsibility of another person's life in my hands. And I think for me, it brings a lot of freedom in my decision making process, that I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm allowed to make a mess. I'm allowed to you know, splatter my thoughts on the wall, and it's all acceptable. I mean, um, it's going back a little bit about design, and I think where it really all made sense was when I wasn't allowed to touch my mom's special brushes, her very very expensive equipment, and I thought to myself, one day I'm going to have those expensive brushes, and I'm going to have the special things that nobody else is allowed to touch. And when you're a little kid, you fantasize about these things, and it becomes an obsession. You got these horrible broken things and the watercolor paints, and one day when you're big, you're going to have the awesome stuff. And I think that was a huge motivational thing for me when I went to art school and I went to college. I thought, yes, this is my breakthrough. Now I get to buy the expensive stuff as well, and nobody else is allowed to touch it. Um, but throughout my career, it's also been, it's not just paintbrushes. Paintbrushes is just metaphoric for software and for the technology that you get to invest in. And I think at the end of the day, I enjoy my job a lot because of all these new toys that a person gets to play with. It's never a guilty pleasure buying a new laptop, putting it simply. So yeah, it's a bit of a long explanation, but I think at that moment when my mom told me I couldn't touch her stuff, I thought, you know what, I'm going to grow up one day and buy my own stuff.
I think it's a very similar thought pattern that most kids have. When I grow up, I'm gonna get this thing that you said I'm not allowed to get. Because I mean, with myself, I have it with I got myself a gaming PC like a couple of years back, and I mean, growing up, we had this like dinosaur PC that was slow and could barely do anything, and I kept telling myself like one day I'm gonna get like a proper thing that can play games, because I mean all my friends they had like consoles, and like everything was kind of like smooth there. So yeah, it's that story kind of just took me back a bit to figuring out some of my own motivations. For people who didn't have like such an overt or like a clear, let's say, support for their creativity, like what would you say, like what would you say to them if they're trying to like break into the industry, and their parents they weren't they weren't artistic, they weren't really creative, but that's something that they feel they have inside of them, but there's no outlet, if I can put it like that.
Oh, well, specifically towards a creative industry, and this is now probably excluding the technical side of my business and what we do. So just with creativity, as an artist, you say talent is 10% and hard work is 90%. And everybody thinks that's a joke, but it's the absolute truth. Throughout art school, to a degree, we are overwhelmed with theory, and theory, not just history and all of this kind of thing, but the actual theory of art, how to draw, how to construct, how to bring creative thoughts, how to mind map, how to encourage and inspire creativity. So I think even as a person that was born to do something else, if you feel that there is a tiny spark of creativity in you that is more than enough, if you want to break into a creative, not necessarily an industry, but if you just want to explore it, I would start with figure out how to encourage those creative thoughts, how to provoke your mind. into thinking in different directions, get that down. And once that's down, you don't have to think of the most amazing, most creative, most outwardly thing from the get-go. You must just know how to get your mind to a point to thinking like that. And once your mind is there, then those creative thoughts will start bubbling up and you'll start coming up with amazing things. Then you learn theory, and then you'll learn how to actually put those things into practice and to start creating a visual out of it. So it's definitely a process, and it's not just for creative people. It really is for everybody. Again, it's just 10% talent, and I think everybody's got a little bit more than at least 10% talent inside them.
I think that's a pretty insightful view. The I think what kind of resonated with me in particular is that it's the 10% talent and 90% hard work. Because I think I don't think I'm alone on this, but it may be that people tend to see the end result of whatever an artist produces, and they compare the 10% talent to what that artist has produced. And I think that is it's for me at least, it's been pretty discouraging, because I mean, there's been a couple of occasions where I tried to draw or paint, because my partner's an artist as well, and just so we can kind of like engage on creatively or like on her level. And I mean, whatever I draw, it's always a disaster. And she always says it's fine, it's art is subjective, it's you just doing it for yourself. But I think that thinking that that pattern of thinking that I have, that kind of that compares what she's doing to what I'm doing. I mean, that she's been doing it for years and I'm doing it. I'm like basically dilly-dallying, a couple of weird stick figures or whatever the case is, trying to draw a dog and so on. It's I think that demotivates a lot of people. Maybe not people trying to really let out their creativity per se, but for a lot of dabblers, let's say like myself, because that final product of what someone like yourself would create, who's an expert, who's a professional, it can be pretty intimidating, because I just think it's the way society's kind of structured now, in a sense, is that the final product is what everybody's looking for, but like the work that it takes to get there is it's pretty much unseen. It's all behind the scenes. Like we only see like what happens in front of the curtain. So
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you're saying. A lot of people only see the end product, and they don't see the amount of understanding and the practice, the continuous practice, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours, to teach yourself how to draw the perfect circle, for instance, and how to manage shading and composition and construction. I look at my daughter, bless her, she's turning 11 this weekend, and she will sit next to me and draw, and she will also get very, very, very upset and disheartened, because she will look at the drawing that I'm drawing, and she will see that vision in her mind of what she wants to achieve, yet it's not coming through her fingertips. And she gets very upset and demotivated. And I say to her, but listen, besides the fact that you're only 10 years old, you also don't have so many years of continuous practice and continuous study of the theoretical practices. I mean, if I want to start coding, I know what I wanted to do. But that process of trying to code it to do that, I'm going to end up in tears, So it's exactly that. The time that you spend learning any industry, art is the same. Drawing, painting, sculpting is exactly the same. And I think this is the misconception around it, is that people think you've got magical hands and you just close your eyes and you rub that piece of clay into some beautiful form, and then you walk away with your hair blowing in the wind, and it's really not. It's not that romantic image at all. Behind the curtains, there is a lot of learning and frustration, just like any other career. And until you're able to acknowledge that and to realize that painting that picture is going to be just as hard as becoming a chartered accountant, then the idea of it kind of changes a little bit.
We kind of know that web design, but oh yeah. So we know that starting like a business is it's pretty daunting. So like were you nervous to get your first customer? Talking about your web design business specifically, like were you nervous to get your first customer, like knowing you were, or maybe you thought of yourself as an inexperienced like when you first started?
Sure. Okay, so there's a lot of insider information that I'm about to give you. Yeah. Yes, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. Just because I'd literally just started dabbling with web design, I had bought my first domain, and you know, opened up cPanel and thought, "Wow, what is this?" And then out of the need to survive, a person kind of goes through this whole fake it till you make it situation, and then but you're also kind of restrained because you're afraid to sell something and you don't know what you're doing. So it's all of this, it's mixed emotions that go through your mind. And what if I fail? What if I win? Well, what's that saying? Fortune favors the bold, as they say. So when it came to my first customer, I still played it a little bit safe. I still tried to advertise and sell something that I knew how to do, and I think I am still following that methodology going forward. When somebody asks me for something and I don't know how to do it, I say, "Listen, I don't know how to do that, but give me an hour and I'll get back to you because then I will know how to do it." So yeah, uh, I still remember my very first website that I managed to publish, and I still look back on that as a benchmark of the client, the interaction I had with the client, how I felt about the product that I designed at that point, and how I feel about the product now. I mean, now I want to go back and just fix it. But yeah, I think every day from day one up and until, as long as this journey is going to take me, I think it's always going to be filled of things that I don't know how to do. It's going to be filled with new interactions and new situations. And yeah, let's just hope, because I think if it ever stays the same, it might get intensely boring and I might not want to do it anymore. So yeah, I think a journey is definitely, it's a terrifying one. It's not for the faint at heart, but it's got its rewards and it's a lot of fun.
You've obviously passed the initial like I'm just starting this business phase, so like how did you like deal with your imposter syndrome, if you had it at all, like when you started, or even if you have it now? It's was it's is it did you need like lots of support from the people around you, or like after clients were happy with the product and you were like, wow, I did a good job, I could do this all along, it's like there was nothing to I wouldn't say there was nothing to worry about, but like it's this is like the boost that I needed. Like how did you manage all of that?
Yeah, imposter syndrome, that was a big one for me, and it still happens. When you walk into a room of corporates and you're like, oh, the weird one here, what am I doing here? So I do still get that. Dealing with it has become a lot easier over the years because I think the gratification comes in when I get that. I like what you've done, Chanel. Thank you. And then I look back on the work, and my support structure here at home. My partner has a look at my work. He proofs my stuff for me quite regularly, and he would give me that kind of feedback to say, "Listen, this is actually very nice," and then I feel a little bit better about it. But yeah, I think the ultimate kick is when the client comes back and they say, "Yeah, this is great work. We are so chuffed." Then it does kind of boost your ego a little bit, make you feel better about what you're doing and what rooms you walk into. But I think it's definitely something that will always be there. I think it's just something that a person eventually you get used to dealing with, and you just kind of work it in your head. And bulldoze forward and get the job done. And then at the end of the day, even if there was doubt and people look at your work and they like it, then and that's I think what matters.
Okay, I mean, like I do agree that it's an ongoing thing, even for myself. Actually, I don't think I've met someone who doesn't or who hasn't had in imposter syndrome. I mean, I don't bring it up to everyone, but the people that I have spoken about too, like they are familiar with it. They've experienced it themselves. So yeah, I mean, I do think like having a support system, obviously that does help a bit. But like you said, like if the client or the customer gives you that thumbs up, I feel like nothing very little like compares to that in terms of like support or like your own like mental training or mental thought pattern or whatever. I mean that thumbs up is like the ultimate approval, which is I mean I'm just thinking in terms of our psychology, maybe a bit worrying, but I mean if it works, it works. So yeah, yeah.
I think if you're looking at the psychology of it a little bit, yeah, I won't go too deep into it, but a person does have to be quite resilient and you have to be quite thick-skinned. You're not always going to get that thumbs up. And I've spoken to some guys in my industry that they get bulldozed from the beginning. Their first client was the worst one, and so we're not all lucky to just. It's not just about good work; it's about having nice clients as well, because you can get people that you can deliver them the moon and they will still be dissatisfied with it. And I think that's where the thick skin comes in, is to realize that you are not going to satisfy everybody and to not take it personally and to not bring yourself down to the level of thinking that you cannot do this or you're a failure or something like that, just based on a handful's opinion when you're actually doing a good job. So yeah, so I just think it's a very, very, very gentle balance of just being thick-skinned, but also being able to roll with the punches, basically.
You're doing what you love, right? You're running a successful business. Your hobby is kind of your vocation, or your vocation's your hobby, whichever way you want to look at it. Um, how would you define success, and would you say that you have achieved it?
Um, yeah, I think success is personal satisfaction. What we as humans tend to do is we set goals, and by the time we've reached our goals, we've got other goals in mind, and we don't realize where we are. For me, I was on that path, always setting a goal, and once I've achieved it, I was already chasing something else that I never realized. Listen, last year I was thinking about this and I wanted it. Now I've got it, but now I don't even realize that I have it. So I think in a sense of just sitting and reflection, looking back at all the things I wanted to achieve and knowing that I have systematically, even the small battles, achieved those little steps one by one and being satisfied with those little victories. I still have my goals going forward. They will always grow, they will always evolve and change. But by sitting still and realizing that, listen, I have a business, I am able to pay my bills, um, I'm doing what I love. That, in an essence, is a lot of people would say I'm very privileged to be in this kind of position. It's a lot of privilege and hard work. So I think if I had to measure my success, I feel that I am successful at this point. Obviously, not where I want to be just yet, but we'll see. We'll have a look in 5 years' time if I've reached that goal, and then look back again, and then just assess as we go. Just I think as long as I'm moving forward, I will be successful and I will always feel like I've achieved my goals.
I was actually thinking about this a couple of weeks back, and it's like younger me would younger me would have killed for the things that I have now, but the current me is thinking about things that I should be having, and it's the I mean an example, let's say, would be like the gaming PC that I kind of had set up for myself. I mean, younger me would have been chuffed with this. So yeah, I'd say that. I mean, that sounds pretty successful to me as well. So yeah. What's the one thing you need to be successful in an artistic design industry besides creativity?
Um, Okay, I've got it. I've got it. All right. To be successful within the creative industry, I think would be the ability to listen and absorb your brief. I've been in a situation many times. I'm a bit of a bull at the gate, so I will get this brief, I'll absorb this much, and then I'll go into that direction and then give the client what I think looks nice. And in the meantime, it's completely off point. So I think the ability to succeed within a creative industry is to just listen and not always run with what you personally think and what you personally like and think is a good way to design or put something together, but to absorb what the client wants and then to be able to take that and to translate that into the end product. My personal tastes is bold colors, reds, splashes, big edgy words, that type of thing, which is something I cannot apply to somebody within the beauty industry, for instance. So, I think or what would define you as a good creative and somebody that is going to succeed is definitely to just take yourself out of your own head and not always think about the things that you like, but to apply your talents and take what the client likes and what the client wants to see, and then work on the end product there. And that takes a bit of practice. I mean, it's hard. Not always. We're so ingrained to go with our personal preferences and our personal tastes that it takes a bit of practice to get out of that flow and out of that mindset.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Especially on like leaning towards our personal preferences. I mean, of course we do that because that's kind of how we existing, right? That's our default state. It's not like we go to it. I mean, for example, the kitchen. Take something that we think someone else is gonna like, and we eat that. I mean, it just makes no sense. So, but yeah, I think a very insightful answer. I mean, most of your answers have been insightful. I enjoyed our conversation together. I mean, it's been fantastic getting to know you. Yeah, that about sums up our time together.
It's a pity I was enjoying this. Now I have to go back to work.
Oh,
this was lacking.
Well, I mean, like hopefully it continues for a while, and then I mean we could probably get you back like in a couple of months, maybe in a year.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will be in person as well that time. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it as well. I think it was.
Yeah,
I think it's quite enlightening for me as well. I mean, learned a couple of notes and lessons that I picked up from you that I think I should incorporate into my own like life. So yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. That's my feel good for the day. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I want to go and make some coffee now. Think about that.
Okay.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, as usual for all your hosting needs, feel free to check out our website. We're also on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you're into that kind of thing, you can find Chanel and her business online. We'll also share social media details. If you have any questions or topics you want to hear about or want us to talk about, feel free to reach out to us. We'll have all the details of today's episode basically in the show notes. Thanks for listening to HostAfrica. Goodbye.